So 3 weeks ago, the president put his vice president, Joe Biden, put Kamala Harris in charge of the border. How's that going? It's actually not funny. They're completely changing the population of the country when no one's noticing. Kamala Harris doesn't seem to be paying much attention to her new portfolio either. She still hasn't been to the border. But according to the Washington Post, which is on the case, and by on the case we mean flacking full-time for the new administration, Kamala Harris has been very busy. This week, Jeff Bezos' personal newspaper reported, Kamala Harris has been, quote, making her mark on the Washington area crochet scene. Crochet as in kind of knitting. She's our new Crochet Czar. She was recently spotted in Old Town Alexandria across the river from D.C.
I was raised by a mother who said, I'm not going to let you sit in front of that television doing nothing. And so I have crocheted more Afghans than I can tell you.
Okay. Mark Steyn doesn't sit in front of the television doing nothing either. He's written best-selling books and informed the country on what the news means. He's also our crochet correspondent, and so he joins us tonight to assess what we just saw. Mark Steyn, it's great to see you, and it may have been needlepoint. I get confused over some of these handicrafts. No. But how do you assess the Post coverage of this?
Well, I think she just made a rather remarkable confession there when she said, I've crocheted more Afghans than I can tell you. I believe that's a war crime under the Geneva Conventions, and probably the real reason why we're pulling out of Afghanistan in such a precipitous hurry. So these are not small admissions. You know, Mark Twain, who is a hate crime these days, but back before he was a hate crime, he wrote a novel called A Connecticut Yankee at the Court of King Arthur, in which the time-traveling Connecticut Yankee is very bored by the local newspaper, the Court Circular at King Arthur's Court, which just reports on Monday the King rode in the park, on Tuesday the King rode in the park, on Wednesday the King rode in the park. That is what the Washington Post does under Democrat regimes. Today, Her Royal Highness the Princess Kamala rode in the park to her crochet shop. And it's presented as if, with the usual glass ceiling rubbish. The first sentence in the story is, when Vice President Harris visited a woman-owned yarn shop. A woman owning a yarn shop, Tucker. That's shattering the glass ceiling. Everyone knows the whole yarn shop business was controlled by Halliburton. If you try and buy a nice home-style looking North Country quilt, it's probably made by Dick Cheney over the weekend. And so even this, a woman-owned yarn shop, Kamala Harris, it fits. She's going to a woman-owned yarn shop by a woman who probably declares her pronouns as Kamala declares her pronouns. You know, I used to, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we live in activist, radical times under an urgent, busy government that never stops, whether it's from packing the Supreme Court or from its plan to federalize the voting systems of the country. And yet, incredibly, the president and the vice president, who are the only elected members of the executive branch, seem to have virtually nothing to do with any of this hectic 24/7 governing. So what she's mainly crocheting is a huge, great subterfuge over who's really running this racket.
That is such a smart point. And the Washington Post is abetting the lie. Obviously, Obama, Susan Rice, others are running everything. But really quick, when the richest man in the world running the biggest monopoly in the world, Amazon, buys the hometown newspaper of the government, maybe there's a reason. Maybe we should have paid attention to Jeff Bezos' purchase of the Washington Post and its intended outcome.
Yeah, actually, there used to be a lot of fuss and bother about this, as you'll recall, when Mr. Murdoch, who owns this network, there used to be all kinds of rules about you can't own a newspaper and a television network in the same town. But basically, Amazon, which is the company town for the planet under this lockdown, is allowed also to run the media. That should never have. It's all a racket, and this idea that you know the Republicans will do the same thing when they win an election. Don't make me laugh, because they never do.
Yeah. And the guy who owns China's largest retailer also owns the Washington Post. Should make you nervous. Crochet correspondent Mark Steyn. Thank you.
Yeah. Happy tatting, Tucker, as a Marchioness once said to me.